Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys take this opportunity to be grateful for what you have, for the people around you, for your family and friends, and all the rest of it. When I was in the prison, the holidays were always the hardest. You're always going to miss your family every day of the year. But when the holidays come around, you start remembering the gatherings, the food, your parents, your siblings, and the homies. And this last couple of days, that's what's been on my mind. Just missing some of the homies that are no longer here with us. Some of them are incarcerated, and some of them has moved on from this life. And today I want to share a story about one of them. But before I got on here to share this story that I'm about to tell, I wanted to make sure that I had the blessing and permission to do so. When I got out in 95 out of juvie, I was introduced to the rest of the crew. Before then, I was just running around with a handful of homies that lived around my way, and we were doing what we were doing, but I wasn't a member of the gang or anything. I was just running around with the homies. But as, the summers went on, my name kept coming up about, that I'm about the business. So when I got in 95, I was introduced to Lo and his family. Lo is the second of 4 brothers. The homie Doughboy is third, and the youngest one is Vun. And they became like an extended family. Lo and Lana, they're like the OG couple of the crew. At the time, they already had 2 kids. The rest of us were just kids. But Lo and Lana, they always made sure to always bring us together. They're always throwing barbecues at their house. And when homies don't have no place to stay, they're taking them in. They practically raised a bunch of us. And through all the years that I've been locked up, they were always there to, write a letter, keep us in touch, relay messages and stuff to keep the family intact. My crew, I don't know, I can't speak on anybody else's and stuff, but we're more family oriented than it's just, associates or members or whatever. We really care about each other. That's why today I'm able to sit here and live the life that I live, because, we've all been locked up. We've all been through it. And at the end of the day, man, we want something better for each other. And to that, I'm grateful. I have my family, my immediate family, my blood family, but it's a different relationship, and it's a different connection. A lot of times when kids run into the streets, it's because they're lacking something at home. So you go find that camaraderie, that love, that support in different places. And, even though we were running around doing some not so positive stuff, the loyalty was always there, right? So in 95, I was at Lo's house having a barbecue, and all of a sudden, 3 dudes take off on me. And, for me, I'm not going to question anything. If somebody swings on me, I'm going to react. and I'm piecing them up. Bing, bing, bing. I got 3 dudes on me. I'm piecing 2 of them up. They back me up to the side of the house, and the homie Vun does some karate kick or whatever, kicks me on my side and knocks me down, you know, against the side of the house. When I fall down, I can see footsteps trying to stomp on me. So I'm rolling on the ground. I get back up and I'm standing my ground. Bing, bing, bing. And then somebody says, stop, it's enough, it's enough. Well, at the time I didn't, you know, when I was in the scuffle, I didn't know that it was the initiation. And that's how I became a member of TOP. And after that, it was just all gas and no brakes, right? So fast forward to November of 95, I'm at the house, I get a call. And they're like, hey man, I need you to come over to the house. I was like, all right, I'm in the middle of something right now. He's like, no, I need you over here right now. And the voice sounded urgent. So I'm like, all right, I'll be over there. So I get in my car, I show up to the house. I was like, what's up? He said, man, I need you to go pick up Doughboy and the homies. They're down in Midville. At this time, I live in West Valley. The house that I showed up to was in Kearns. And the house that I need to pick up the homies are in Midville. So, you know, nothing was told to me or anything like that. They just said, I need you to go over his house and pick up the homies. But the impression that I got was that it was something very serious. So I got me and the homie Cap from TRG out of Fresno. We got in my car and we headed down to Midville. When we got off the ramp, the freeway, to take the road to this place that we're going, we come into an intersection and it looked like it was Christmas. There was police cars lined up, lights flaring, ambulance, fire trucks. It was a chaotic scene, right? And for me, you know, I'm pretty intuitive, I think that's the word, or perceptive. And I was like, damn, the homie might have bodied somebody, right? So we drive through all the police and all that shit, get to the house, pick up everybody that was out there, and we head to Salt Lake. We split up. We brought him back to another place. We split up, and Doughboy stayed in my car, and we took him up to Salt Lake. And to the house that we went to, we call everybody that's older than us uncle. You know, our culture. Anybody that's older than us, that are the age that could be our parents, we call them uncle or auntie, right? So I'm just gonna prefer this guy's name as my uncle, but he's not related to me in any way, shape, or form. And before this evening, I've never met him. So we go to the uncle's house, and the reason we went over there is rumors that he used to be a hitman for the Chinese mob. And he had caught a couple bodies in Texas, and he's been on the run for the last 15 years, right? So we went to him because we needed advice. We were all young. We were just all in our teens, man. 17, 16, 18. And we got over there, we sat around, and we clicked on the news. And the homie Doe was sitting there like, man, if the dude lived, I'm gonna turn myself in. But if he doesn't make it, then, you know, I'm not trying to go to prison, you know, for 20 life sentence or whatever. And as we're watching the news, it comes on that the kid died at the scene. So let me take you back 2 weeks prior to this incident on how it began. There's a place called High and Mike's. It's a bar up in Midville that we used to always go and play, shoot pool and kick it at. That was one of our spots that we used to go hang out. And maybe a week prior to this incident, when we were over there, this dude rolls up and he's got a system. Back then in the 90s, it was about rims, your rims and your system. And he comes through the parking lot, bumping his shit. Boom, boom, boom. And, he dressed the part like he in that street life. And he looking at us like, he want the funk, right? People, I always find it comical that there's dudes that walk around feeling they have to give people a dirty look or mad dog them or look like they're tough and all that stuff. So anyway, we were outside smoking a cigarette when we pulled up, and when he went in, I went in to go and play pool or whatever. But a couple of homies came back out and jacked all his shit. Took his system, took his stereo, everything, loaded up in the car, and rode out. So by the time I left, me and the homies that was in the bar, by the time we left, the deed was already done. So I think they all kind of went to the same school. Cause we're up in Midville. We got a couple of homies that lived out there in Midville. And I guess the white dude was telling everybody that if they catch the homie, he's gonna smoke him, for jacking his shit. So Doughboy hears about it. And on that evening, they found out where he was working at. He was working at a Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, in Midville. So they rolled down there to confront him, right? So they walk into KFC. It's like, hey, man, you been talking shit about my homie, this and that. He's like, yeah, what's up, man? So what you trying to do? So let's go outside. So, and the white dude got heart. He went outside. They went outside, and I don't know the conversation that happened while they were outside. I wasn't there, but the homie ended up shooting him 3 times and killing him. So now we're at the house, and, Uncle is giving us the instruction on what we need to do and all the rest of it. My part was, I already done my part. They didn't want people knowing all the rest of the details because, as you know, the less people that know about the business, the easier it is to keep it under wraps. So I took off with the rest of the dudes, and we headed back to West Valley. While I was in West Valley, I come out and I'm smoking a cigarette outside, and there's this Mexican dude sitting on the porch. He's Mexican, but he's from a Laos gang called LBC, Loud Boy Crip. We were kind of functioning with them for a little bit. First impression, the way people act, the way they dress and stuff, you might mistake that they're with the funk, right? But as you get to know them and as you hang out with them and as shit pop off, you start to realize that maybe some of these dudes ain't what they portray to be. So when I come out to smoke my cigarette, the Mexican dude, he's sitting down, he's got his face in his hands, and he's sobbing. So I'm looking at him, like, man, what the fuck you crying for? He looks up at me, he's like, man, Doughboy didn't have to do that. Doughboy didn't have to do that. I said, what the fuck are you worried about? You weren't there. You don't know. No one knows you. None of that. Just fucking go home and sleep it off. Now, when you're younger, you get a sense of certain things, your intuition and all that stuff, but you're not really confident in yourself yet to trust those intuition. And like I said, growing up, you see people show you who they are. But again, you haven't had enough experience to recognize it and believe it and act on it. So to me at the time, in my head, I'm like, man, this dude's gonna go tell, right? This dude's gonna fucking go tell. But I didn't know, I was 17 at the time, I didn't really know how to respond to that. So anyway, everybody went home that night. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody's house gets kicked down. Everybody that was there at KFC, all their house got kicked down. They all got locked up in DT. And in the next few days, everybody, ran into everybody else except for that one Mexican kid. So that confirmed that this little fucker went home and called the police. This is how I ended up catching my first beef for a sawed-off shotgun. So after that, they're coming through anybody that's associated with the homie and kicking down doors and looking for him. They happen to kick down my door looking for him, so they say, and end up finding a sawed-off shotgun in my house. And that's how I end up going to prison. Right? So, I didn't really get to know Doughboy that long. We were running around together for about 4 or 5 months before all this shit popped off. But if anybody knows, like when you're locked up in prison with somebody, the relationship forms quicker and more solidified because of the situation that you're in, because you're in the trenches. And sometimes the relationship that you build, you have to be able to evaluate if I can trust this person or not. And if it's not, you move on. You keep them at a distance. But if you know this is the kind of person that you can trust, that's going to have your back, then the bond gets tight. But it's the same way in the streets. There's things that it was just me and Doughboy that went and handled that I'm not going to share. But, we formed a bond because, the things that he showed me during that time was he was somebody that was solid. You really never know anything about anybody else until the shit hits the fan. The only person that you can really know is yourself. And I always knew myself as to be somebody that was committed, that was going to be, all in, regardless of what it is. And regardless of the time that comes my way or the situation, it's just what it is. I bought into that life wholeheartedly. So I get locked up in 95 for that sawed-off shotgun. I come back home around May of 98. And as I told you, December 15th of 1998, I get caught up for all this stuff that I end up going up to the feds for 26 years for. But while I was in the jail, they're coming at me and, asking me about these, all these other cases and stuff. When we got picked up, we had a bunch of crazy shit that we were being charged with. And one of these nights, I had a dream. And the dream was somebody had called me out for a visit. And as I'm coming out of my cell and walking down the hallway, I see somebody knocking on the window. Bing, 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 the cell window. And I look, and it was the homie Doughboy. And I'm like, what the fuck, Because, sometimes in your dream, it's realistic. And as I'm walking by, he's knocking on the window, and he's like, man, what's up, man? What's up? And I wake up, so I had a friend, Otis. He was a black, older black gentleman out of Chicago. Me and him used to kick it, and you know, when I'm locked up, man, I find myself, I'm more comfortable engaging in conversations with older men because they have more wisdom and knowledge than the dudes that are my age, right? So Otis and his cousin, they were coming through Utah from Vegas and got busted with like 20 keys of raw powder. So he's in there fighting his case, and I'm sitting there, and we're always having a conversation. And throughout my whole life, I've always had like certain dreams that are repetitive, but I lack the ability to decipher them. So really, it's just like kind of like pointless for me to have these dreams where I don't know how to interpret them. But so I tell Otis about the dream that I had before, that somebody had called me out for a visit, and I seen Doughboy, and he was telling me, hey, you know what's up. Now, as soon as I finished telling that story, my name comes over on the intercom. And they're like, hey, Rip, you got a visit. And in that moment, you know, I had like a little shot of adrenaline, and I'm looking at Otis, and we're looking at each other, and I'm like, man, I guarantee you it has something to do with my dream, right? So they pulled me out of the unit and take me down this hallway and opens this locked door and escorts me into this little room. And in the room was two Midville detectives. I recognized them from the time back in '95 when they were kicking everybody's doors in and trying to question everybody, interrogate everybody about the murder. So they come in, I sit down, and they're like, hey, man. They bring out a big ass file. They open it up, and they're like, you're facing a lot of time. You know, I don't say nothing. They're going on, you know, we can help you with this. You know, we can help you reduce your time. You know, I don't say nothing. And like, I don't care about what you've done over here. You know, he's talking about all the robberies and shootings and stuff. Because you know why I'm here. Again, I don't say anything. He's like, I know you've seen him since you've been home. And I haven't. I haven't seen the homie since that day that I picked him up. You know? But he's like, oh, I know you've seen him since you've been home. I know you visit him. I know you know where he's at. So finally, I say something. I'm like, well, I don't know anything. But the guy that's telling you that I know something, maybe you should go back and ask him about it, because obviously he knows a lot more than me. As a matter of fact, we're done with the conversation. And like, well, the door's locked. You can't go anywhere, so you might as well sit down and talk to us. But I refused. I got up and I started kicking the door, you know, trying to get the guard's attention. And I was over at the door kicking it for like 2 or 3 minutes before one of the COs walked by and like, hey, what, you know, they're thinking something's going on in there. They're like, wait, they opened up the door, like, what's going on? I said, man, I'm done with this. And I left. And, you know, I ended up going to prison. I ended up in Lompoc. And in 2003, I called home. And they told me that the homie Doe had died. You know, from 2003 to 95, it's been 8 years. So he's been on the run for 8 years in the feds, from the feds. And I think that was one of the reasons, like, the feds came down on us so hard, was that they thought we were organized. They thought we were connected, because a lot of people out here in Utah that get caught up in shit, you know, their homies end up telling on them. They end up catching up to them. Dudes that try to go on the run, they don't make it for very long, a few months. And it was unheard of that somebody's been on the run, not just from the local police, but the FBI and the U.S. Marshal, because they had him on America's Most Wanted, broadcasted throughout the country, and they were still not able to find out where he was at. As far as my part, I told you the last time I seen him is when I picked him up. And after that, I've never asked no questions about where he's been, what he's doing, because I don't want to come across like I'm trying to gather information. He's doing what he's doing. There's no need for me to know anything about any of that. And, I didn't really get the rest of the story until I came home. Just a couple weeks ago. That's why I was shared the story of how it all came about. And that's why I said before I did this video, I had to make sure that I was able to share it. And the homie gave me his blessing. He was like, yeah, go ahead, So I guess through the course of the 8 years, he's just been moving around from state to state. And in 2003, he was coming back to visit his family. I guess he's been doing that every so often, sneak back into Utah to visit his family and all the rest. And on this occasion, he was staying with a friend of mine for about a month. And when he was getting ready to leave to go back to where he was staying, the homie took him to Wendover. Wendover is Nevada. It's about 2 hours away from Salt Lake across the state line. That's where everybody in Utah goes to gamble. And the homie was supposed to come and pick him up at a certain time, but for whatever reason, the homie was late. So Doughboy, he didn't want to wait, or he started getting paranoid. When you're on the run, when things don't go accordingly, when you expect it, you start thinking that maybe something's amiss. So he ends up jacking a car and gets in a high-speed chase through Nevada. And eventually, his car runs out of gas. And when the car runs out of gas, the police right there, they got him surrounded. But the homie didn't want to go to prison. So the homie put a pistol to his head and moved on from his life. I always repeat that there's a lot of things that we've done in our younger days in our life that a lot of people might not agree with. But for me, I don't speak on the deed, on the things that we've done, but I speak more of the relationship and the commitment to it and the loyalty. Because, I always say, like, if you sign up for something, understand what you're signing up for. And if you sign up for that knowing of your own free will, then you have to abide by that. If you want to be a missionary and go to church and preach the gospel, then do that. Don't be running around picking up hookers, doing drugs, and all the rest of it, because then you're going to be a hypocrite, living in a contradiction. And if you want to be a gangster, be that. But understand the rules and the repercussions and the consequences that comes with that. And you have to be willing to live or die with that. And, at the end of the day, like, you might not agree with what we do, what we sign up for, but these people that signed up for this shit, when it says for life, they really mean it. Whether it's life in prison or your life or their life, they mean it. And for people that stay true to that, Regardless of what they sign up for, at the end of the day, you have to respect it. Welcome to the USP.